Okay, hi. All right, I have 21 minutes. And they're off. Murray? I know, but I'm not calling you. I'm just kind of hinting to you that we only have 21 minutes, so. And we've all heard your shtick the first two meetings. I heard it. I did hear it inside. I had a private audience. Okay, Chris Stoddard from New Flyer regarding procurement today.
Good morning. My name is Chris Stoddard, Vice President of Engineering and Customer Service at New Flyer. I have responsibility for the design and certification of our buses and also supporting them in the field once they've been delivered. On behalf of the 2,200 men and women at New Flyer, we would like to thank the MTA for the recent order of CNG and diesel buses. We've been supplying New York with buses since 1996, and we look forward to a long relationship with these most recent orders. In our proposals to New York, we committed to meet a specific goal for New York State content, and we understand the importance of that commitment. That message is loud and clear with everyone at New Flyer. To that end, we have aggressively pursued suppliers and organizations to provide parts and services to meet our obligations. We are in the process of securing a service center location in New York. Our goal is to find a suitable geographic location that allows for optimal service to the various bus depots. We've engaged the services of a local realtor, and in parallel, we are working with Empire State Development. We continue to look at several possible service center locations in New York. Once secured, this facility will provide warranty and services to New York City Transit to support the variety of models and propulsion systems within these contracts. In closing, we again thank you for your business, and we are working diligently to meet or exceed our New York State content. Thank you.
Hey, Murray.
There's a massive cultural change going on in the MTA. This just being part of it. I suggested that those board members who are holdovers either get confirmed or get the hell off the board. This committee's running pretty well. The last one was running pretty well. Bridges and tunnels isn't. You have to understand that you're there to lead. You should have a computer in front of you. And the rest of the stuff, I'll do it at the next meeting.
Murray, I don't appreciate what you said, but I appreciate your timeliness. I said I don't appreciate the content, but I appreciate the timeliness.
You don't have to agree with me. You just have to listen to me.
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. And a second. And all approved. Okay. We are now... One second. I got to get my cheat sheet.
Work plan.
I'd like a motion to approve the work plan.
No changes.
No changes. We don't need to vote on it. Okay. Darrell is going to introduce John.
Okay, good morning, committee and Chairperson Chevelle. We'll start the report with John Hine giving the operations report.
Good morning. The performance highlights for the month of March 11 and the past 12 months are on pages 12 and 13 of the committee book. For the month of March, combined bus MDBF was down 6.6% compared to March 10 levels. AM and PM pullouts as well as completed trips also declined slightly from March 10. Over the 12-month period ending March 2011, combined MDBF fell by 5.8% compared to the prior 12-month period. AM and PM pullouts fell by less than 1% and completed trips by 1.1%. The number of buses over 12 years of age has increased by 40% in the past 12 months, and over this time the percentage of buses over 12 years of age has increased from 18% to 27% for the MTA bus and New York City Transit bus fleets. To provide the committee with additional information on the actions we're taking to address and improve MDBF performance, I'd like to introduce Henry Sullivan. He's our Chief Maintenance Officer, to make a brief presentation on the highlights of our maintenance performance initiatives.
Good morning. Please refer to the MDBF presentation distributed to each of you at the start of the committee meeting. Year-end MDBF performance declined slightly from 2009 to 2010, resulting from a second-half decline that began in July of 2010. Recent MDBF performance is promising, showing an upward trend beginning in February of 2011. Although factors such as a hot 2010 summer and an increase in overall age vehicles played a role in the decline, they do not explain all of the decrease, and therefore a set of 10 initiatives is being pursued to improve performance. Actions already completed include identifying engine failure root cause, adjusting preventive maintenance programs, and piloting an enhanced performance management process. Next steps include the implementation of a Chief Maintenance Officer chaired MDBF task force, formalized inspection and repair program review, and increased technical training. The MDBF in the second half of 2010 lagged 2009 performance, but is trending upward in 2011. This is actual monthly performance. Slide 3. Although non-controllable factors played a role, they do not explain the entire decrease. An example of non-controllable factors at play are a number of buses 12 years and older. In 2009, 904 buses, or 15% of the fleet, was over 12. And in 2010, 1,321 buses, or 22% of the fleet, was over 12 years old. Also, number of days where temperature was over 90 degrees. In 2009, we had 7 days, and last year we had 37. But an analysis of our performance process identified a number of challenges that we are addressing. Should I go on the next slide? Item number 1, establish formalized management training and mentoring at all levels of the organization. We have initiated an executive-level depot review where Darrell, John, and myself meet a general manager and an AGM and have an unscripted review of the depot statistics to see firsthand how they monitor, track, and improve their performance. We find these small groups improve the frank discussions, and we have established an action plan for the depot at the end of the meetings. Improve depot maintenance manager training. We have a manager of maintenance on staff in every borough, and we've taken all of them and trained them on how to run reports to monitor maintenance, why they're running those reports, and this way we have consistency in each borough. Each borough manager has the same statistical reporting, so you can move from borough to borough and everybody's monitoring our performance the same way. Establish scheduled operations and preventive maintenance classes. Between Steve and Vidal and my staff, we've established a SO scheduling and preventive maintenance training class. Attendees learn how to schedule, track, and close out and record inspections and why it's required to do so. We currently have 42% of our managers from general superintendent and above have less than 2 years in title. Initiative number 4, establish a CMO-chaired MDBF task force to work with the depots, identify and resolve process and technical issues. The MDBF task force is completing 3 additional depots, bringing the current total to 5. Findings and action plans will be communicated with depot management. The task force will target depots with poor performing fleets. All data obtained will be analyzed for any trends. We will work with the depot preventive maintenance team to assure quality inspections. We analyze roll call phase and repairs to identify trends and provide technical resolutions. We observe the depot process to identify and correct any weaknesses. The 9th initiative is to establish a mandatory preventive maintenance quality control or RERAC program. We've established a maintenance policy that mandates the completion of preventative maintenance RERACs of an inspection in order to improve our quality. The RERAC work orders will be reviewed in SPEAR, it's our electronic maintenance filing system, for compliance and issues found. There will be site visits to conduct rear-acts of these audits. These practices have proven beneficial and are now standard across the department. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions in the committee regarding this material?
The one comment, oh, pardon, no, that I have is we've watched a deterioration of the mean distance between failures throughout 2010. And Darrell and his team took it upon themselves to present what was, what is, and more importantly, the action plan, without any of us asking them to do that. So thank you. Now we're on to it. So resolve it.
If you look on page 12 at the MDBF, New York City Transit's buses MDBF is significantly down, whereas MTA bus and Long Island bus are up. So is that our older vehicles? Is it route specific?
No,
Is there something else at play here?
it's equipment, isn't it?
There are 3 depots that have fleets over 12 years old in New York City Transit alone. And that's where I'm dividing up those test fleets. I'm putting in the depots that have the oldest fleets to get the age down.
In addition, Long Island Bus has seen an increase in performance because of a capital investment. They've received approximately 140 new buses over the last 2 years.
Thank you.
Is it our problematic articulated buses, too, that contribute to this?
They have a low MDBF. They have since they were initially brought onto the property. But it's the aged fleet. We have buses that are 16 years old running around that haven't been replaced yet. And they're bringing our statistics down.
Good morning. Our comments on February's customer and employee safety performance refer to results that are on page 14 of the committee book. I'll begin by reporting that, as we noted at the April meeting, the impact of the December and January winter storms on the rate of collisions continues to lessen over time, and there's a positive trending for all 5 indicators on a regional basis for the month of February. With regard to the specific evolving trends, the 12-month rate for combined bus collisions per million miles traveled across 3 bus units is 7.1% higher than it was in the prior 12-month period. However, this comparison has improved from what we reported last month, as the significant impact of December and January winter storms is mitigated over the first quarter. A preliminary review of the March data indicates that this trend will continue to move in this right direction. With regard to the rate of collision injuries, we still have not identified any contributing factors that would explain why the longer-term trend shows a substantial number of initial collision injuries reported at accident scenes that are inconsistent with forensics evidence and also inconsistent with the lack of subsequent claims filed or pursued for damages. The 12-month rate for both customer accidents and customer accident injuries continue to move in a positive direction on a regional basis since we addressed these issues last March. To sustain this momentum, we are continuing our training initiatives and oversight controls that have been developed and implemented as highlighted during our March presentation last year to the committee. Finally, the 12-month rate for employee on-duty lost time accidents has moved to 0.2% better as compared to the prior 12-month period, and this directly relates to the more favorable February weather conditions that have evolved over the winter storms. Now I would like to introduce Tom Charles for Paratransit.
Good morning. The Paratransit report is on page 16. For the month of March 2011, access-ride paratransit ridership increased by 3.2% compared to March 2010 levels. Able-ride ridership decreased by 7.6% from March 2010 levels. Over the 12-month period ending March 2011, there was a 2.6% increase in access-ride requests for service. Able-ride experienced a 12.3% decline in requests for service over the same 12-month period. The year-to-date decline in Able-ride reflects the elimination of non-ADA trips implemented mid-year 2010. Favorable no-show trends were seen in the month of March as access-ride and Able-ride passenger no-shows declined by 26.3% and 41.8% respectively. Finally, I want to report on the current status of the test and evaluation of the broker for car service project. Since the launch of this cost reduction initiative in late January, the broker has reached a daily trip assignment of 2,000 trips, a similar amount produced by the 23 individual car service firms currently under contract with New York City Transit Paratransit. The quality of service, especially for ADA compliance matters, requires further attention. This is typical for startups and operations that receive a significant increase in assignment of trips. However, we are confident this will be addressed by the broker and the affiliates within the broker's network of car service firms. Now, Tom Del Sobo will present the financial and procurement reports.
We'll have an updated report on that next month.
Yes.
It's going to be a month thing till it...
Level sold.
Yes.
Good morning. We'll start with the fixed route ridership report on page 15 of the committee book. For the month of March 2011, average weekday ridership fell at all three agencies when compared to the prior March of 2010, despite the fact that the spring school recess occurred in March last year. The school recess tends to reduce bus ridership levels. In March 2011, both MTA Bus and Long Island Bus average weekday ridership fell by 0.8%, and New York City Transit fell by 3.3% in March 11 versus 2010. Average weekend ridership, MTA Bus and Long Island Bus rose by 0.3% and 5.6% in March 11 as compared to last March, but New York City Transit Bus fell on the weekends by 2% in March 2011. For express bus service on weekdays, they fell in March both at New York City Transit and MTA Bus by 4.4% and 4% respectively. We have a look at the preliminary data for April ridership, and there are some sizable decreases in average weekday ridership at all three agencies when compared to the prior April. Now, part of this is due to it's attributable to the timing of the spring recess, but not entirely. For April 2011, average weekday bus ridership was down 9% in New York City Transit, 6.4% for MTA Bus, and 5% in Long Island Bus year over year. Okay, moving on to the revenue and expense budget report that's summarized on page 17. Year-to-date March 2011 farebox revenues are down across the board when compared to the adopted budget, primarily due to the residual impacts of the January storms. MTA Bus is 2.1% below budget for farebox revenues, Long Island Bus 1.1% worse, and New York City Transit was 4.6% worse than budget through March. Overall, in the first quarter of the year, farebox revenues are $11.6 million less than budget for the first quarter. Now, despite lower revenues from budget, year-to-date non-reimbursable expense levels still reflect favorable variances for each agency. MTA Bus, Long Island Bus, and New York City Transit Bus are below 2011 budget levels by $10.9 million in MTA Bus, $1.9 million in Long Island Bus, and $36.7 million in New York City Transit Bus. The underruns against budget are primarily due to vacancy levels, economies in paratransit in New York City Transit, and some timing of non-labor expenses that haven't hit yet. And that concludes the finance report. If there are no questions, I'll move on to procurements. Yes?
You know, I think you guys are too hard on yourself. I mean, you measure passenger levels, reliability, and service, but in the bottom line, it looks like your bottom line is between 10 and 20% better in each agency, and it looks like you've saved us in the first quarter $30 million ahead of budget. This is a figure you should be proud of because you've kept expenses under control as the ridership level has gone down, and I think you deserve credit for that.
Thank you. There's been tight controls on overtime. I'm going to give you an example in New York City Transit Bus. With the vacancies they have, they're almost $11 million on base pay under, but overtime is actually over budget, but only by 1.8 of that $11 million. So there's a wide gap in savings there. Okay.
I better buy you lunch after that.
Hey, Nancy.
Yes.
One thing, I'm going to abstain on all the procurement, so I'm going to step out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Beginning on page 47, we have 4 procurement actions totaling $370.8 million in proposed expenditures for approval this month. This includes 1 non-competitive procurement, 2 competitive procurements, and 1 ratification. I'd like to highlight 3 of the actions. The 1 non-competitive procurement staff summary, which is in your agenda on page 53, represents the purchase from Nova Bus of 328 articulated clean diesel buses for New York City Transit. Most of these buses, or 280 of them, will be used to replace high-floor Arctic buses that have reached the end of their useful life, and 48 of the 328 being purchased will be used to convert from standard local bus service throughout the 5 boroughs, which results in an operating savings. The first competitive action I want to mention is the exercise of the option to purchase 250 low-floor, 40-foot CNG buses for the New York City Transit and MTA bus fleets from New Flyer, as outlined in the staff summary that's on page 55. These buses will replace overage CNG buses and will be delivered immediately following the 135 CNG buses purchased in the base order from New Flyer that was approved by the board in July of 2010. And finally, the other competitive action I'd like to highlight is discussed on page 54. That represents a contract extension to First Transit to staff and operate the Accessoride Paratransit Call Center. As part of the effort to contain paratransit costs, an active effort is underway to explore the possibility to have the call center at an off-site location. Therefore, this contract extension will permit us the opportunity to revamp the scope of work on the RFP for a replacement contract to incorporate the many important factors that are involved in maintaining a remote call center operation. We're asking for the committee's approval and moving the procurement actions forward.
First, I have a comment. Before we vote on these very exciting procurements and necessary, not that everything we read in the newspaper is true. However, I have to ask Darrell to comment on the article in the newspaper about the lack of space on the new buses.
Right. The 40-foot Nova buses has the same configuration that the 328 Arctic that we're looking to purchase now. It's the same dimensions in terms of the rear of the bus and seat configuration. It has what we call conversational seat configuration where they face each other. So there's nothing new about that. One of the things that we did find was that there was an error in the vendor in installing the seats. They used the wrong brackets. I'll let Henry speak a little more specifically in terms of adjustments that's going to be made to fix that issue.
When we first received the comments, we pulled the bus in and we measured the seating, because before we accept the build, we do a configuration audit. We check everything in the bus by to make sure it meets the contract, and the bus did. So the bus meets the APTA requirements. And then we're wondering why we're getting these issues when we have 90 of them running around in Manhattan and the Bronx. We have 2 million miles on them. We brought in an Arctic and we brought in a 40-foot bus. We measured the two buses. We found a 4-inch difference in the seating. The distance in between those two seats, one faces forward, one faces rearward, we can increase that distance to match the Arctic by 4 inches, and the other seats still meet the APTA requirements. So we're going to have all the seats that we've got delivered on the buses replaced with the correct bracket, and the buses will be corrected before we receive the rest of them in that order. No charge for it.
Except the cost of bringing things in and putting them out of service.
Right.
I mean, there are software. Okay.
Nance, I just want to make one mention. While I'm going to vote for both procurements, and I appreciate the comments of the speaker from New Flyer, there is a significant difference in the New York State content between the two procurements. If you look on page 53, the Nova State content is 38%. If you look on page 55, the New Flyer content is 13.79%. Those are significant differences. I fully understand the necessity of buying all the buses, and I will vote for it, but I would strongly encourage New Flyer, even more than I strongly encouraged them the last time we talked about this, to significantly increase their New York State content, and that means more than just locating the facility here, which is obviously of great importance, but it would also mean working with suppliers and other equipment manufacturers who will operate in New York State. There's no reason, in my opinion, why one is almost 40% and the other one can't get to 15%.
Steve, would you give us a hand?
On the CNG procurement, which is they had competition from Daimler, who has a facility in Oriskany. Their New York State content, while having a facility, was only 18%.
Yeah.
So New Flyer has done a very good job in terms of utilizing Empire State to identify local vendors. They've increased that percentage. I know they've been diligently looking, and they've actually visited at least 3 facilities here, and they got the message.
Okay.
In terms of increasing their content.
Just gave them the message again.
Yes.
On the issue of the Nova articulated bus purchase, there's language on the page that leads one very definitively to believe that we're going to expand articulated bus service in the other boroughs, which of course means less service. May mean the same number of seats. We've heard all this morning about why we're losing bus riders, and people really don't like waiting very long. This means they're going to wait longer. So I think you should be mindful of providing less and less service. People are going to defect more and more from the buses. You may actually end up with fairly empty artics in the outer boroughs if the service level doesn't. Chuck was talking very vociferously this morning about why we're losing bus riders, and which came first, the riders or the level of service, and Tom was addressing that as well. And I think we've got to be mindful of that at some point. I'm all for replacing our existing Arctic fleet because they are falling apart.
Right.
There's no question about that.
No, you want to take that, Peter?
Yeah, I think first of all, we have a fairly generous ratio that we use for Arctic to standards. It's not 1-for-1 seat conversion, and it's generally we're going to be looking at very frequent high volume routes. So the change is going to be negligible, and in these cases, often in the outer boroughs. Sort of to add to the discussion in the last committee, we're not seeing a uniform decline on New York City Transit. We continue to grow on some heavy routes in the outer parts of the outer boroughs. Those are the areas where we would look to go to our Arctics to slow the increase in cost rather than actually reduce the service significantly. Most of our declines have been in the center, in Manhattan, and the inner parts of the boroughs.
So, Peter, these new articulated buses are going to run with the same frequencies as the buses they're replacing?
No, there'll be some reduction, but these are routes. The Q44 is one that we just put a significant amount of additional service on because it's been growing, and I think it's every 3 to 4 minutes. So I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's less than probably a half a minute on change on some of those routes in terms of waiting time.
Okay,
with the Arctic versus the standard bus.
Is there? Hopefully, we'll monitor that very carefully because I
and
really agree with
this is not an immediate. This is some time down the road when we get these buses and the other buses replaced. So it's not a short-term thing.
That's right, but frequency is really an important issue in people's minds as they travel, and hopefully this will be a negligible amount of time between buses, and it won't stretch into 2, 3, and 4 minute gaps.
I'd just like to add also that the MDBF on the newer articulated buses is considerably higher than the existing fleet, almost 3 times. So from a reliability standpoint, this new product is going to make a big difference.
Well, that's pretty obvious. Okay, a motion?
Moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And one,
Norm, service changes?
and we had one person abstaining. Okay, there's a couple.
Good morning. There are 2 service changes included as information items in this month's agenda. Both of them relate to MTA bus service. The first MTA bus service change on page 57 of the agenda is a streamlining of the Q10 bus route Lefferts Boulevard local branch for accessing JFK Airport from the South Ozone Park area. The service revision would use Pan Am Road to access JFK Airport using the same travel path currently used by the Q10 Limited and reduce travel time on the local and travel distance. The second MTA bus service revision on page 62 of the book represents a travel path revision of the Express QM10 and QM11 routes in Rego Park to utilize 108th Street instead of a more indirect path. This revision will make permanent several elements of a current QM10, QM11 long-term detour caused by construction by the New York City Department of Design and Construction relating to street and utility projects and result in reduced travel time and distance. Do the committee members have any questions about these 2 changes?
I just have one, Norm. On the stops that are going to be removed and relegated to the Q10 Rockaway Boulevard bus, Of course, that bus isn't ending up in Kew Gardens, is it?
Yes, it is ending up in Kew
It is
Gardens.
ending up in Kew
Yeah,
Gardens?
all three branches currently have the same termini, both north and south.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, we don't have to vote on the service
No.
changes, correct?
That's correct, they're minor.
Lastly, there is,
We have an action item. This month's agenda includes an action item requiring the committee's approval with regard to changes in the Bus Operations Committee charter. The revised charter is contained on it begins on page 68 of the book. Our acting general counsel, Robin Bergstrom's here if there are any questions regarding these charter revisions. Otherwise, if not, we'll ask for approval of the revisions.
questions? Okay, Darrell, thank you.
Okay, that concludes our agenda for today. If there's any other questions, if not, that's it.